Okay, welcome to Lesson 6 in my series of tutorials for complete beginners on the piano. If you're just diving in right here, you might like to check out the playlist link underneath this video, which will take you straight to Lesson 1. Now in this lesson, we're going to go over the homework I set you last time. We're going to learn a new piece, including a couple of important new concepts, and we're going to check out another scale for you to practice. Okay, now in that previous tutorial, we learned how to play one short piece of music, and then I gave you another one to figure out for yourself and learn, as I say, as a kind of homework exercise. So the first thing I'm going to do today is play through that piece and spend a bit of time discussing it. Okay, so here we go. So this is piece number 2 from last week's PDF. First of all, let me play it through with the score up on the screen. Here we go. Okay, and now we'll take the score away so you can watch me do it. Here we go again. So in terms of technical skills, there's nothing massively different in that second piece from what we saw in the first piece. There's a longer crescendo, a getting louder, marked here by this hairpin, and that's going to take a little bit of concentration and control to get right, especially as those right hand phrases are going downwards. So it's almost a kind of semi-unnatural place to do a crescendo. I did that deliberately to give you a little bit of a challenge there. Okay, so watch your control there. You might also notice that the dynamics are a little bit more pronounced than they were in the first piece that we looked at. Okay, so back in that first piece, we were dealing with MP, moderately soft, and MF, moderately loud. Here we've got F, forte, and P, piano. Okay, so F, forte for loud, and P, piano for soft. When you're practicing the two pieces, that's kind of a hint because I want you to keep practicing them. Make sure that you're focusing on those differences of dynamic and working hard to get the louds and the softs right. As I said last time, louds and softs aren't absolute. Okay, so sometimes one of your softs might be quite loud and one of your louds might be quite soft. It's down to interpretation, but it's very much kind of guideline. Okay, so try to be loud where it says F and try to be softer, relatively speaking, where it says P. Okay, so that's that sorted out. Now in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at a new piece, but it uses a couple of concepts that are new and that I want to talk about for a moment or two before we play through it. So here it is, and it even has a name, Lullaby, which maybe tells you something about the style we're going to be playing it in. Now, by now, we're used to the idea of when we see a new piece of music, looking at the start of the first system, the first line of the grand staff, to get some basic information. Okay, if we do that here, we can see we've got a treble clef and a bass clef for right hand and left hand, which is pretty standard and what we usually expect. But instead of 4/4 time, we have 3/4 time. Now, we saw 3/4 time very, very briefly in one of the worksheet exercises in lesson 3, but here I want to think about it in a bit more detail. Okay, so we know that 4/4 time gives us 4 beats in the bar, or 4 beats in the measure, depending on the terminology you use. I just want to use the introduction of 3/4 time to think about beats and bars in a little bit more detail and explain a couple of interesting and useful things. So we have 4/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, we don't just divide pieces of music into bars of 3/4 or 4/4 or whatever randomly, or just use bars to keep music tidy and readable or whatever. Bars, measures, call them what you like, actually have a musical function. Different time signatures have different feelings to them, yeah? And a piece of music's time signature, 3/4 or 4/4, or any one of actually quite a few others, is just one of the factors that gives it its unique feeling. Now that happens because not all beats are equal. In a bar of music that's been played at a steady tempo, a steady speed, all the beats will be of the same length, but some will be relatively stressed and some relatively unstressed. Now in a bar of 4/4, the first and third beats are stressed and the second and fourth are unstressed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first beat, which we always call the downbeat, will usually be stressed a little bit more than the third. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In a bar of 3/4, the first beat, the downbeat, is usually stressed and the second and third unstressed. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm kind of exaggerating the stress there. It doesn't necessarily mean that when you play a piece of music in 4/4, you should necessarily hit the first and third beats of the bar any harder than the others. But it does mean that the important musical events, like the beginnings and the ends of melodic phrases or chord changes, are more likely to happen on those stressed beats. So having an awareness of the time signature, whether you're playing in 4s or 3s, will help you to shape your performance and make it work musically. Now don't worry about all that in too much detail for now, because you'll find that a sense of a piece's time signature is something that comes automatically as you get more experienced. In practical terms, all you need to do for now is to make sure you're counting the right way. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or whatever when you're playing a piece. So now we've got all that out of the way, let's get back to this week's piece. Now we've figured out that it's in 3/4 time, and that's one of the new concepts that you need to get to grips with when you're working on this. But there's one other one that I want to talk about as well. It involves these things, these little black squiggly lines that you can see here. Okay? Each one of those squiggles is a crotchet or quarter note rest. All it means is don't play anything here for the length of one crotchet, one beat in 3/4 time. Now rests are kind of important because in most piano music we don't have both hands playing all the time. Sometimes they pause, and we use rests to notate those pauses. What I've done here is introduce this one type of rest just to give you an introduction in this piece. Just to give you an introduction to the concept of rests. Ultimately, what you need to do is learn all the different rest types to match the various notes. Okay, so crotchet rest, minim rest, semi rest, all the rest of them. I've included a quick guide in this lesson's PDF. For now though, let's just see how this crotchet rest works just by playing through the piece's right hand, okay? And I'll count it as we go. Keep an eye out for how when I come to the rests, I'm not playing anything. I don't necessarily move my hands miles away from the keyboard, okay, because I need to be back on it quickly, but I just lift off. Here we go, just the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, rest. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let me now play it both hands together just so that you can get a sense of how it sounds. First of all, I'll do it with the score up on the screen. Okay, I won't bother counting. Okay, and now let's do it without the score on the screen so you can see what my hands are doing. Notice how I'm following the dynamics, the louds and softs and the crescendos and the decrescendos, getting louder and getting softer pretty carefully, yeah? Especially, you know, my MP was actually reasonably loud there, but it gave me a little bit of space to follow that decrescendo down in each case, down to the PP at the end, and I got it to a point where it was really quite quiet at the end there. Okay, so there's kind of a lot to take in this week, but before you go, I want to give you one more thing to think about, a new scale. It's G major. And it works exactly the same as C major with the same fingering and everything, except it starts on G. And it has, wait for it, one black note. Let's just play it through. Here it is in the right hand. Up and down. Notice that the fingering is just the same as C major, okay? 1, 2, 3, thumb under, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back down. But on this note, when we get to the F, instead of playing the white note, we play the black note immediately above it. We call that note F sharp. Sometimes it can be called G flat, but in the scale of G major, it's always F sharp. F sharp, G. So have a go at that and get used to the slightly different movement involved there with your fourth finger. As I say, it's exactly the same as C fingering wise, but it starts on G and you just have that one black note, a tiny bit of an extra stretch instead of the white one. Here it is in the left. Again, same fingers as C major, but with an F sharp, the black note, instead of the F. For now, all I want you to do is to practice those, probably just right hand and left hand separately, but by all means have a go at, both hands together if you like. And we'll talk about it more in the next lesson. I've included score for it in this week's PDF, by the way, okay, so all the fingering and stuff is written out in there. Okay, so homework this week is to first off keep practicing the two pieces from the last lesson, then practice Lullaby, the new piece, then keep practicing your C major scales, both hands, aiming to keep everything smooth and even, and then practice the new G major scales. When you're practicing the pieces, remember what I said in the previous lesson about being musical and listening to the sound you're making rather than just focusing entirely on pressing the right keys. So that's quite a bit to keep you going, yeah? Just before you zip off to do that, don't forget to like this tutorial if you found it useful, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. The links are in the description below this video. You might also like to check out my Patreon crowdfunding campaign at www.patreon.com/Bill Hilton. If you can spare $2 or $3 a month to support what I'm doing here, that would be fantastic. I'll see you in lesson 7. Practice hard.